Hi, welcome to my channel. This video is completely dedicated to 7th chords. If you already know these chords but have difficulty applying them, try to follow my advice. Make yourself comfortable and let's start from zero. Let's start the description by saying that someone has made a prank on us. Let's think about what we can call the notes. We can call the notes of a scale with letters C, B, D, E, or with their historical name, tonic, mediant, or with their position in the scale, first, second, or with their degree, which is the same as the position, first degree, second degree. If we call the notes according to the position, there is no problem from the first degree to the sixth degree. At 7th grade, there is an exception. The 7th note is called the major 7th. The flat 7th note is called the minor 7th, or dominant 7th, or more simply 7th. In theory, I should always specify whether 7th is a major or minor. If not specified, it means minor 7th. So, a C7 chord is a C chord with the addition of the minor 7th. A C major 7 chord is a C chord with the addition of the major 7th. A C minor 7 chord is a C minor chord with the addition of the minor 7th. Let's see how to play the B minor 7, starting first from how to play a C minor 7. If we were in a C scale, this is a C. A C minor looks like this. In a C minor 7, I don't play the fundamental note on the right, but I play the minor 7th instead. What I get is an E flat in the right hand. That is, a C minor chord becomes a C minor 7th by playing the fundamental on the right and a major chord on the left. In the case of B minor 7, this is the B minor chord, I'll have to play this note here. So, let's review. I have a D major chord on the right. Generally, when I play the major or minor 7 chord, I don't play the fundamental note on the right. Even if, for example, on the diagrams you see a C7 like this, or the C minor 7 like this. I don't play the note because it is unnecessarily more complicated, and because I keep the note free for possible arpeggios. I give an example. Let's consider a song with these two chords, a C major and a D minor 7 with a time of 4/4. In the first case, I arpeggio the D minor 7 chord without using the fundamental note on the right. In the second case, first I start with the triad of a D minor 7 to let the harmony of D minor 7 be heard. And then I continue alternating the note C, which is the minor 7th, and the note D, which is the fundamental of the chord. If you want to play a minor 7th or major 7 chord with 4 notes in the right hand, in case the chord uses only the white keys, this symmetrical position is particularly used. I repeat, personally prefer to play only 3 notes simultaneously on the right hand. Okay, now let's see the major 7th chord. This is the C chord. I play the C major chord like this. So, a C major 7th is an E minor chord with a C in the bass. You can also play the C note with your left hand if you like. This is the most comfortable position. I don't play C with my left hand, and I keep the note free for possible arpeggios. So, I generally play it like this. I'll tell you, the first few times this thing will drive you crazy, because the chord is called major, but uses a minor chord on the right. On the contrary, the minor 7th chord, which is called minor and uses a major chord on the right. Don't worry and resist. Over time, your hands will automatically go to those chords, without thinking that you are playing major or minor triads on the right. The beginning will be tiring. Attention please, do not confuse a C major 7 chord, which I play with an EM triad in the right, with the E minor chord with a C in the bass. They are completely different. There is an abyss. It's precisely the concept that it's different. In the E minor chord, I play the first, third, fifth of the E minor chord in its reference scale. In the C major 7, on the right, I am playing the third, fifth and the major 7th of the C scale. We're lucky, the notes coincide. And I can tell I'm playing an E minor in the right hand without having to say every time I'm playing the third, fifth and the 7th of the C chord. I will give an example of chords with a different note on the bass than the chord itself when we talk about 6 chords. Now I'm going to play you a few seconds of the careless whisper accompaniment. There are 4 chords in the song. A D minor 7 that you can play with an F triad in the right and a D in the bass. A G minor 7 that you can play with a B flat triad in the right hand and a G in the bass. A B flat major 7 that you can play with a D minor triad in the right hand and a B flat in the bass. An A minor 7 that you can play with a C in the right hand and an A in the bass. Let's go back to White Christmas. In our case, we have an E major 7th. I play E flat instead of E and get an A flat minor chord on the right with E on the bass. So we repeat. But in the video I posted, I didn't play like this. I thought it was too many notes. I tried different combinations, but in the end I decided on a very simple passage. And at this point we introduce an important concept. When you see a chord above a text, it doesn't mean you have to play a chord. That chord means you must play notes that are in harmony with that chord. Now, statistically we play chords, but we can also add or remove notes, play notes or arpeggiate, or use passing notes. It's also possible to replace that chord with another and get a reharmonization of the song. Let's say that if you have a major 7th chord like this, you should at least play the major 7th note. This case is special because the passage is very fast. Generally, when you play a 7th chord, you need to hear at last both the 7th note and the mediant note. So, you should play at least 3rd grade and 7th grade. So, in the case of C7, I have to play the dominant and the E, which makes us understand that the C chord is a C major chord, simultaneously or via arpeggio. One more thing about the major 7th chord. When you play a major 7th arpeggio, you may fall into a trap. Let's take a song in 4/4 time with the C and F chords and try playing an arpeggio. There are not a problem with the basic chords. I can play an arpeggio with my right hand, starting from any note anywhere on the piano. Now, let's try with the C and F major 7. So, we have to arpeggio the F chord using the note E. I went out of time, and the note E was played around the 3rd beat, but I had to play it on the 1st beat. In my opinion, major 7 chords hardly accept having a delayed sound. So, to solve the problem, I could think of playing the E note on the 1st beat. Let's see what happens. It worked, but the sound might be poor on some songs. If I want to arpeggio a major 7th chord, I prefer to play the triad at the right moment and then continue with the arpeggio. On a minor 7th chord, this problem is less evident and sometimes not relevant because the sound of the minor 7th chord is closer to that of the fundamental chord. In contrast, the sound of a major 7th is most distant from that of the fundamental chord. However, even though the sounds of a minor 7th and a major 7th are very different, I play these chords in the same way. This means I consider that the rules for playing them are the same. On the other hand, the dominant 7th chord is different. It should be played and interpreted differently. Let's see the dominant 7th chords. Let's see the C7 that you see done like this in the scheme. But that it can actually be played like this. I don't play the C on the right, but eventually I use it for arpeggios. When a dominant 7th note is played twice, as in the case of the C7, they annoy me. Because they are too tensive. So I tend to play a dominant 7th in a lower position. So I usually play a C7 like this. Of course, it depends on the song. A7. I should play this note here. It's too tensive, generally I play A7 like this. I would like you to notice one thing. Here are the schematics of how I generally play the C7 and C major 7. In the C7, I place the dominant 7th in a lower position. Conversely, in this A major 7th, I tend to put the major 7th in the highest position to emphasize the sound. In the C7, it's very rare that I play the dominant 7th in the highest position. Conversely, in the C major 7th, I never have a problem playing the major 7th in the lowest position. This depends on the sound I want to give or the comfort of the hand position. In the C major 7th arpeggios, I can play notes in both positions. In both cases, when I arpeggio, I add the C to the right. Let's take C and G based on a 4/4 time, which we end in a C chord. Let's try playing the triads. No problem. Now, let's try C, G7 and C. I hate repeating dominant chords. I don't like it. So, how do I fix it? I have several solutions. In the first case, play the 7th chord during the 4th beat. This is the case I use most often. In the second case, play the G7 in the first beat. Nothing prevents me from playing the 7th chord once in the other beats. But, for example, in the song Nothing Compares to You, I played the dominant 7th several consecutive times because it fit well. I hate repeating 7ths, but in that song they sounded better when repeated. Every song can have its exceptions. Now, let's see arpeggios with G7. It's very similar. For example, in the first case, I played the 7th of G7 during the 4th beat. I can also play it on the first beat, as in the case of the major 7th, playing the triad and continuing to arpeggiate. Third case, I can simply arpeggio and play the 7th note anytime between the 1st and the 4th beat. I can also play a triad in the first beat and then arpeggio repeating the 7th. Let's make a summary of the types of 7 chords considering the C chord. There are 7 types of 7th chords. Here you see 8 schemes because the last 2 are part of the same family. They are C major chords with the 5th augmented and the addition of the 7th. In the genre of music that I play, piano accompaniment pop music, I think I have never played these chords in my life. I have played many augmented 5th chords, but never augmented 5th chords with the addition of a 7th. Today I have to play them. It will play the fundamental note on the left and the other notes on the right. So I take them out of these schemes. At the top right, we have the diminished 7th chords. The half diminished chord uses the minor 7th. In pop music, diminished chords are not used every day, but you will find them. A variant of the diminished 7th is the major diminished 7th. It's very dissonant, hard to find in pop music, and I take it out of this scheme. On the left, we have the 7th chords whose triads are not altered, and the minor or major 7th is added. The first 2 chords above are C major chords. The last 2 chords are C minor chords. The first chord is a C major minor 7th. The name is too long, and we call it C dominant 7, or more simply C7. The second chord is a C major major 7th. The name is too long, and we call it C major 7. The third is a C minor minor 7th. The name is too long, and we call it C minor 7. The fourth is a C minor major 7th, and we call it C minor minor 7. This last chord is very rare. I remember playing it only once in the last few years. So I take it off the schematic. What you see are the 7th chords you need to learn if you want to play piano accompaniment. If you found this video useful, I would appreciate your like. In the next video we will complete the song. Thanks for your attention and see you soon.